Well, good evening and welcome to Belta Valley. And my guest tonight is Bryan Booker. And I'm going to clear something up. He's not related to the Booker family from town. Okay? So,
Far as I know,
as
yeah.
far as he knows. But he gets that question often because it's a well-known family in town.
Absolutely. We're from Charlton and Oxford, not Northbridge as far as I
Right.
know. So,
But at one point from New Bedford.
yeah, I lived in New Bedford for a long time after college and moved to the area, moved to Northbridge a couple of years ago and loving it so far. It's a great town.
Yes. How did you find Northbridge?
Well, I grew up in Charlton. I was always aware of Northbridge.
Yeah, not that far away.
Not that far away, and certainly came to Purgatory Chasm, even though that's in Sutton. But was
Yeah.
familiar with the area, and went to West End Creamery and everything, and just knew that it was a great town. And when my wife and I were looking to move out of New Bedford and find a place to start a family, Northbridge was at top of our list. Absolutely. So.
Well, welcome to Northbridge. We have a large number of new families in town.
Yeah.
Of course, we got a lot of development going on, and that's where you come in.
Yeah, I hope so.
Bryan is a house inspector, and today, I built my house 30 years ago. You really didn't hear about house inspections,
No, home inspections are,
a home inspection.
yeah, house inspection, home inspection. We're not limited to just a single family home. We inspect condominiums, we
Right.
inspect multifamily properties, some mixed use commercial properties. We run the gamut as best we can. But home inspections are still new. I would say in the last 20 to 25 years, they've become more commonplace. There have been home inspectors around for almost 50 years now.
Right.
But it's definitely a common thing, and it's almost, sort of a given when you're buying a house to get a home inspection.
In some cases, mandatory by the mortgage company, right?
Sometimes, yeah. Certainly, some of the programs like VA and FHA, so your Veterans Affairs and your Federal Housing Administration, sometimes they want to see a home inspection. They want to make sure certain things are done. So, conventional loans, not so much, but I think for peace of mind, it's a good idea for everyone to get one.
Well, I was going to say, I was thinking about when I knew we were going to have you on, I was thinking about, even if you've lived in your home for many years, wouldn't it be a bad idea to have one on occasion to see if you have problems somewhere?
No, it's not. Certainly we do home inspections. Most of what we do is when a person's buying a home, they get an offer accepted, they call us
Right.
and want us to come in, do the inspection, and give them some feedback on what they should do about the process moving forward. It's a huge investment, but to your point, I mean, things happen over the years, and
Yeah.
codes change, and building practices change, and they get better hopefully with every
And you
passing
might
year.
have something that you don't catch because you live there all the time, you don't notice it.
Yeah.
That a home inspector could come in and catch it and get you repaired before it gets worse.
Absolutely, before it gets worse, or even if you're considering selling your home in the next 3-5 years, and there's going to need to be some work done,
Yeah.
we can provide that insight and hopefully point you in the right direction for before you go to sell, so there's no surprises.
Yeah, so it actually could be a good investment on your part.
It is. I think it is.
Yeah.
But it's my business, so
Right.
of course I think it
And we're talking about the biggest expenditure you have.
Absolutely. It is, above buying a car, above paying for school, this is the biggest investment you're going to make in your lifetime. And you want to have that peace of mind. You want to make sure you're getting into a house that's not going to put you over your head.
Right.
Absolutely.
How did you get into this yourself?
So our company, Dovetail Home Inspection, was started about 20 years ago by my father, Brent Booker.
Oh, so you inherited the
So
business.
I'm the second generation
Yeah.
of home inspector. I worked in software in a previous career, and he started talking to me about 5 years ago, asking me if I wanted to get into it. And I'd been following him around on construction sites and jobs as a carpenter, which was what he did prior for years. And when he got into home inspection, I was interested, and I started following him and really starting to do the training about 4 or 5 years ago to get licensed and to get a approved or to get licensed to be a full-time home inspector.
Yes, that's the other thing too. No one can just pick up a toolbox and say, I'm a home inspector. You have to be licensed.
Right. There's a pretty lengthy and rigorous process that Massachusetts requires of its home inspectors. Most states do have some sort of licensing to it now, but Massachusetts and Connecticut as well are very strict, among the highest standards that you have for a home inspector in the country. And so it's a lot. It's 100 mock inspections you have to go on. You have to have
Wow.
someone essentially sponsoring you for those inspections and signing off on your work, a supervisor. And there's a lot of coursework as well, a lot of study that's needed, and a national home inspector exam you have to pass as well.
Now, do you have to be familiar with zoning as well?
Zoning, not so much. Zoning and actual building codes, we don't really touch upon that often. It's not required of us. And we really just focus on sort of the building practices, general best standards for building practice. We don't study state or local codes and keep up on that. You know, a general building practice in Massachusetts should also be the general building practice in Washington or Arizona or wherever you are
Right,
in
yeah.
the country.
Yeah, the zoning more or less is under the guise of the building inspector.
Right.
But now, you have to be qualified in more than just carpentry or structural work. You have to know wiring, plumbing,
Yeah.
and probably today, solar.
There's a whole host of things that we have to be familiar with. We have to understand the systems and be able to speak intelligently to them and give a real analysis on. We're a jack of all trades. You know, I liken it to being a general practitioner or a primary care physician. You know, they know all about the body, they know the different parts, and they can advise you on different things. But if there's a special issue with a part of you that needs to be addressed, they refer you out to a specialist.
Right.
And that's sort of what we do, yeah.
Right, but you have to be able to notice it and find it. And
Yeah, you have to notice it, and one of the things we tell people all the time, it's a visual inspection, and it's, you know, an assessment of what the house looks like that day that we're there. And so we don't tear apart walls or ceilings or anything like that. You know, we really have to do an assessment of what we can see and advise on the best course of action from there.
But that still means you'll crawl up into an attic or get into a crawl space.
Absolutely, yeah. We wear we have Tyvek suits. If we need to crawl into a crawl space that's, you know, pretty dark and dank, we'll do that. And attics too. You know, if we see a lot of stuff, obviously, going around all the houses in this area, and we're prepared for pretty much any scenario. If we can access it without putting ourselves in danger, we're getting in there and taking a look.
By the way, we do have phone calls, 508-266-0990. Any questions for Bryan, give us a call. And if you want any questions about home inspection, if you think you need to do a home inspection, one of the things you're doing, we were talking about before we went on, is radon.
Yeah, radon gas. Yeah.
Yes, which at one time, that was unbelievably concerned. It was all over the talk radio and everything, but now we're not hearing that much about it. It's because it's not as big a problem as we thought it was?
Not necessarily. I mean, radon gas, you know, particularly in our area, you know, New England and the Northeast, really built on a lot of ledge
Right.
and a lot of granite.
Well, yeah, we're granite everywhere.
There's granite everywhere, which is beautiful, but you know, it does tend to contain higher concentrations of radon gas. Radon's a natural breakdown of uranium. It really is, you know, found everywhere, just in, you know, higher concentrations here in New England. It's still out there. It hasn't gone away. People might start to notice radon mitigation systems are more common now and a lot less expensive. So when we offer radon testing for a home and it comes back positive and there is kind of a higher level of radon, it's not a deal breaker necessarily. There are ways to mitigate it and keep you and your family safe and live in a home that, you know, may have a higher level content of radon than the next guy.
Now, the radon is going to enter the house through the basement, right?
Yep, primarily. So
Right.
radon, enters through the basement mostly. It doesn't matter if you have a finished basement, an unfinished basement. If you have a sump pump or something, that's going to not necessarily make the count higher or anything. But you can have radon in your basement, and your neighbor on either side won't. It's kind of a luck of the draw or an unlucky draw if you do have it.
Even though you may be on the same ledge.
You may be on the same piece of ledge, but you may, from our testing or your own monitoring of it, you may just have a higher content of the breakdown, like the breakdown's happening more frequently in your particular location on your property.
How about if you have an on-site well? Can it contaminate the well water?
Yeah, we do offer a radon in water testing. It's certainly possible to get that. A standard water test for E. coli, bacteria, hardness, and other minerals, won't usually show radon.
Right.
So that's a special test that we also offer for radon in the water as well.
Because, the better well are the ones that they drill into the granite.
Yeah.
And they, what you might say, frack it.
Yeah.
But that's what releases the radon.
It can, yeah, it can disturb it and help accelerate that breakdown of the uranium. Absolutely.
Yeah, see, we don't think that much about it in New England because we're not known for uranium deposits like they have out west.
Right.
I mean, when back in the early 50s, when uranium was a big factor because of the nuclear age we were coming into, the uranium mines were in the west.
Absolutely.
But we still have it here. We just don't have it in the same quantity.
Yeah, we have it for a different reason, just because
Yes.
of that granite, because of
Yeah.
that ledge, because it's just naturally occurring more so.
Right, but you don't have veins of it.
Correct. Yeah.
It's a little
Less
bit
so.
different. It's mixed in with the granite.
Yeah. One of the many joys of living in New England. Just
Right.
one of those things. It's colorless, it's odorless, and it is the second leading cause of lung cancer in this country. So
Wow.
It
and,
is
and you
something.
wouldn't even know you have it.
Yeah, it's something to take very seriously, and that's why we offer that service to all of our home inspection clients, and I would say somewhere in the area of 70 to 80% of them take advantage of it and do radon testing.
Now, you don't do you don't put the equipment in. That's you have to come and get another company if you find you have it.
Yeah, if you find you have it, there are specialty companies that do install those radon mitigation systems. Generally speaking, it's around $1,000–1,500 for a standard size single family home to take
Right.
care of it. It's an expense, but it's definitely come down in price over the
But
years.
that's not too bad.
In the grand scheme of things, if it's a house you really love and you love the location, you love all these other things about it, and that's the worst thing, yeah, it's not a bad thing to deal with, and it's something that even if you have that system, you'll end up doing regular radon monitoring just to make sure the system's working and that you're staying safe.
Now, that actually takes the radon out of your basement.
Right.
Randomly. So if you have a damp basement, does that help with taking some of the dampness out?
Not really, no.
'Cause
So
they do make systems that will take the air. We have one here, in fact, because it was a little damp in here.
sure. Yeah, there's dehumidifying systems that are
This is
separate.
not dehumidifying. This actually pulls the air out.
Oh, okay. So you have a circulation,
Yeah.
a circulation system. What the radon system does, if you ever see one, it's basically a PVC pipe that's drilled into the slab of the foundation. And so it's not taking kind of the ambient air that's in the basement out.
Yeah,
It's
the air
taking
that's underneath the floor.
it's taking it out from underneath the floor and then venting it out through a pipe. It's fan assisted. There's a power
Right.
fan that takes it out of the house. So it's not going to really help with a damp basement. No,
Right.
you got to have. That's a separate system.
More of a sump pump for air.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. But it's like I said, it's they're proven systems, and we hope that even if you get a high radon test back, don't let it discourage you. It's something that can be worked around.
Yeah, but we went for, it wasn't until I think probably in the 70s or 80s that people started talking about radon. and we got houses that go much earlier than that, so,
Yeah, it's kind of even in an older house. I mean, really, any kind of foundation they can put these systems in, and it's one of those things. As we, as our science gets better, as we learn more, we start realizing there are things around us that are harmful.
well, a
and
lot of houses around here,
it's good.
especially the mill houses, the foundation walls are granite.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, that granite was mined, if in Rockdale here, the granite was mined right over here at Shiny Rocks.
Yeah. So again, granted, everywhere in this town, particularly, it's you know, we're lucky. Where I live in town, we don't. Our house specifically doesn't have it, but that doesn't mean our neighbors don't have it.
Right.
That's a point that I can't emphasize enough. That even if you drive through a neighborhood that has all these systems in place, your house might be okay. Don't let it turn you off to a house. Definitely.
Even if you're in an area where it was a lot of heavy gravel.
Yeah.
Because we have a vein of gravel that runs right through the whole valley.
Sure.
It probably goes back, I'm sure, to when the glaciers were melting.
Back to the Ice Age, absolutely.
Back to the Ice Age, but
Yeah.
it runs the whole gamut of the Blackstone River.
Yeah.
And you'll see all the gravel pits that ever were throughout the valley are right near the rivers.
Yeah.
Because that's where they're accumulated. Now, is the gravel less likely to have a problem, or is granite? Eventually, if you go down far enough, you're going to hit granite.
You go down far enough, but where that breakdown of the granite and the uranium's happening, I mean, it can be happening so far below the surface that it doesn't really matter what's at those first levels,
Right.
at the ground, whether it's gravel, whether it's just dirt or forest,
It eventually
whatever it
gets
is.
there.
It'll eventually get there, yeah, and it can fluctuate over time too. So it's kind of a tricky thing to monitor and take care of.
Now,
But-
do you have a sensor that tells you what the radon content is, or?
So what we do, again, we're only there for a few hours doing a home inspection. What we do is the laboratory we work with, you set out a kit. Basically, it's these charcoal canisters. There's 2 of them in every kit. Those canisters sit for between 2 and 4 days in a basement, or the lowest livable space, which is usually the basement,
Right.
which is where the radon's going to enter the house. And those canisters get sent in. Our lab does the analysis, and so over that period of 2, 3, 4 days, it gives you a pretty good idea, and they're able to get a sense of what the level of radon is on an average basis. Yeah, so it's again it's a little bit of an expense above the normal home inspection cost, but it's well worth it.
Right. Yeah, and you got to pay for that lab.
Yeah,
Right.
we try to keep the cost down, because it is an essential service that we provide.
Right. But lab work is somewhat expensive. You can pay if someone has an education that has to pay for their education. They have expenses too, so they got to make
Yeah.
some money here.
No, we work with a large lab up in Haverhill, and they've been great to work with, and been working with them, between my father and I for almost 20 years now.
Wow.
They do good work, and they do quick work. So as long as they're in business, we'll keep working with them, and they've been great to us.
Now, you must be pretty busy right now because there's so much refinancing and buying going on.
Yeah, we've seen it just in 2020. We had a little bit of a slowdown due to COVID. I think the market probably took a pause in that time, and house showings and kind of trying to navigate how you're going to list a home and actually show it to potential buyers. There was a little bit of a pause at the beginning, but really in April and May it started going gangbusters and really has carried through to the end of the year. One of our busiest years, if not the busiest year that my father and I have seen in that
I was
almost
talking
20
to
years.
some realtors, and it didn't even slow down when it got into the holidays.
No, we were doing inspections right through to Christmas. It's only slowed down, maybe a little bit in the past week or two, but it's going to pick right back up again.
Yeah.
The problem now, which is usually what happens, is a lot of people aren't listing their homes for sale, and there's kind of a lot of buyers out there right now, but not a lot of homes available to them.
Yeah, right now it actually is a good seller's market because you got more buyers than you got sellers.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's why we're seeing that building you were talking about before.
Oh, we have tremendous amount of building going on, especially here in Northbridge.
Yeah.
Being on a planning board, I see it firsthand. And then you got a situation, we have the over 55 going in. Well, when that gets built and they start occupying, that frees up former homes.
Absolutely.
So, there is going to be a market available, but it's going to take some time.
Everything does kind of take time, and as great as it's been, for the seller's market and for us as home inspectors, these things ebb and flow, and there will be a slowdown and a rebound.
One of
It
the
all
problems
moves around.
A problem that has risen lately is the cost of material.
Yeah, building
And
material, absolutely.
The word I got was, because of COVID, a lot of the mills were closed, a lot of the timber, people weren't harvesting,
Sure.
things were shut down, basically. So now, 2x4s were going for $2 and $3, we're going up to $5 and $6.
Yeah.
And when you start talking cost of material like that, that's going to raise the cost of a house.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely driving up those new construction projects. My sister just built a house down in Thompson, and building a house now. I just for myself, I went to the lumber yard to get a sheet of plywood the other day. Probably 3 times what it would have cost me a year ago.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to think how much that's impacted our lives and impacted the building industry. But it has. It's really messed everything up.
And I don't see it coming down. Once they get it up there, they tend to keep it there.
Yeah, you hope there'll be a bit of a return on those prices, a bit of return to normalcy, but who knows how long it's gonna take for those supply chains to correct themselves.
Right, and the only way is if it's slowed down enough that if they're not moving material, they'll lower the cost.
Right. So we'll see how those trends. I mean, it's going to be a good year. It's going to be an interesting year, certainly.
Now you have to
trends.
keep up on all these material costs because when you do your inspections, you like to give people an idea of what it's going to cost to correct something, right?
Absolutely. We try to keep up. Building materials are kind of easy to keep up on. What it is sort of repairing or doing major work that's, again, outside our speciality. If there's plumbing work or electrical work, we know people in the industry in those different professions, and we try to, again, speak intelligently to that and give people a rough idea on what a certain correction or correcting a problem or upgrading something is going to cost. We give a lot of information in these home inspections beyond just pointing out what's right and what's wrong. We really try to make it an educational experience. A lot of our clients are new first-time home buyers, and we really want to make sure that they have the best information that they can have before going forward.
Yeah, you're buying a home. You don't want to have to go in and start doing all kinds of work and all kinds of expenses. You just paid out a lot of money to buy the place. Yeah. You're hoping to get a couple of years to be able to pay your mortgage down before you start having to fix it.
Yeah, especially in this market where we're hearing stories about people having to do kind of bidding over asking, and offering on a house is becoming a bidding war in some cases and in some towns.
Yeah, the price keeps going up.
Well, people will list it for a certain price, and they're doing it with the help of a realtor, or they're listing for sale by owner sometimes, and it turns into an auction.
Yeah.
and that someone's come in that's made an offer, and they're already having to offer above their asking price. They probably don't want to get into a house that needs a lot of work from day one.
Right, yeah. I mean, especially when you first move in.
Yeah, you want it to be home ready. I mean,
yes.
People buy for different reasons. People have different skill sets. You may be looking at a house that's 80, 100 years old, know that it needs a lot of updating, but you're going to go ahead and do that work. You're ready and willing. Most people aren't. Most people need something that they're going to move into and they're not going to have to worry about for a long time.
If you're selling an older home and you come in and do a home inspection, you find things aren't up to code.
Mm-hmm.
Does that have to be repaired?
We
Or
don't.
they grandfather it?
We're not really I shouldn't say we're not familiar with building codes, but our standards of practice, the ethics that we're held to, we don't speak to building codes. That's something that, again, we refer to either the professionals that are familiar with them or the building and different licensing boards in a given town wherever we are. That being said, we do try to point out safety concerns and recommend strongly that something get corrected. Something like missing railings on
Right.
stairs, or something in the electrical panel we might see. Things that we don't rank what issues are more important than others. If we're pointing it out, we believe it's an issue and it's something that should be remedied.
Yeah, you might find in older homes, an old electrical service with the old screw-in fuses.
Oh yes, we don't see them too often. Most people have upgraded them, but you go into older homes with those fuse systems. We recommend upgrading that. That's
as well
obsolete.
As what do they call it, parallel wiring?
Yep, parallel wiring. One that we see once in a while. There's a company called Federal Pacific, used to make these stab lock breakers that they're different than any other electrical or circuit breaker in the world, and they're kind of prone to failure. And there were a lot of issues with them. Anytime we see certain obsolete systems like that, that's something we point out and say probably should replace that straight away.
I heard about that with that Federal Pacific.
A lot of issues. You don't see them as much around here anymore. I think they were more common in the Midwest and the West, but certainly enough to see them once in a while. Most people have replaced them by now, or unfortunately, the home is burned down because of
Right.
because of them being installed. So
I tell you, the parallel wiring is very common around here.
parallel wiring and knob and tube wiring.
Knob and cube. Yeah,
Knob and tube wiring. Again, I love living in New England. I love older homes, and the style of some of these homes that we've gotten to inspect is pretty remarkable. But they say sometimes they don't build them like they used to. Well, in some ways, it's a good thing, because
Right.
it's a good thing we don't wire the way we used to.
Yes.
Knob and tube wiring was great, but you can't insulate around it, and the priority for most homes is to become, let's insulate around everything, and it becomes a very unsafe situation when you start to insulate around knob and tube, and we see it a lot. We still see a lot of knob and tube.
I had a situation, we just sold my mother-in-law's home, and it had that knob and tube. Fortunately, the guy I sold it to he repairs houses and then sells them.
Sure.
So and we didn't get what we probably would have got if it was in better shape, but we got a fair amount.
Yeah.
But that was part of the problem. I owned a 6-family when I sold it. Fortunately, prior to selling it, I had gotten rid of all the knob and tube wiring
Great.
and
Yeah.
redone it all with the Romex.
Go ahead. Sorry.
But if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be able to sell a house.
Yeah, there are a lot of issues.
Especially because it's commercial, 6-family.
If it's commercial, absolutely. Yeah, I think there are some roadblocks to selling when you have knob and tube. Even for a residential property, what we found is that insurance companies will give you a little bit of leeway in terms of they'll write you the insurance binder, and they'll give you insurance with the provision that either in 3 months, 6 months, whatever they set out,
Right.
you get it corrected and you get it removed. So again, it's one of those things, like the radon gas, knob and tube wiring shouldn't be a deal breaker. It's something that can be remedied, and it's not going to prevent you from getting insurance on your home. It's just another kind of extra step to do.
Right. Another thing I with a lot of these old homes is if you got a stairway, either going to the basement or going to the second floor, a lot of times they're way out of code. They're too steep.
Yeah.
But that was allowed back then.
A lot of things were allowed and grandfathered in, and we say that, we'll point it out. Things on the stairs, like the railing heights are too low by modern standards,
Yes.
or the headroom. That's the one we run into a lot. Headroom is way too low because apparently people were shorter, or they
Yeah.
just didn't care as much about that.
No, they were shorter, and
Yeah.
it wasn't considered a problem.
No, I guess not. But we point those things out and say, by modern standards, it should be different. It should be corrected. But then you go into some of these older homes, and it's beautiful inlaid woodwork, or just amazing work on these railings, and you say, well, all right. I mean, that's up to you. And really anything we put to a homeowner on an inspection is, we're recommending you do this. We're telling you this is the safety issue. We're telling you this is the deficiency, whatever it may be. What you do with that information is completely up to you. Take it where you want to. If you want to leave that railing that's too low, by all means, it's a beautiful railing.
Yeah, you
that's
you
yours.
can still buy the house.
It's your house.
Yeah, you'll get the loan.
You'll still get the loan.
But you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, you'll have to deal with it if someone goes over that rail because
Yeah.
it was too short. So it's one of those things. You want to keep the character of these older homes as best you can, and not go ripping through them just to bring them up to modern standards, unless you absolutely have to.
Yeah, same with a lot of them have these older heating systems that are obsolete as well.
Yeah, we see a lot of them. We were in a house earlier this week, or end of last week, had an old boiler installed when the house was built in the 1940s. And the old oil boiler, it was still the same one.
Very
it was still
inefficient.
going. Extremely inefficient. If you can look inside the oil boiler and see the flame going, I mean, that's, their efficiency ratings, you're maybe getting 60 to 70% efficiency out of them. A modern one, a modern oil boiler, you're maybe getting 88 to 90%,
Yes.
something in that range. So, it's another one of those things. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
And we'll say things are obsolete, or we'll say they're beyond their lifespan. But if they're still working, I'm a big proponent of use it until you absolutely have to replace it.
Use it till it finally breaks.
You use it until it finally breaks, and in some cases those units were made better than today's. But some of today's the efficiency you get out of today's ones you can't beat.
My uncle had an oil boiler, put in the 1930s, and he actually had to go down cellar every day, every night in the winter to fill the tank. I don't know if you ever saw a system like that.
I've never seen a system where you had to manually fill it.
He had to manually fill his tank, and he had arthritis. And I tell him, why don't you put a new system in?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's been working always. It works good, no problem. Blah, blah. Well, he would go down the stairs on his butt because he had so bad of arthritis.
Oh, no.
And one time he did it, and he couldn't get back up, and ended up spending the night on the basement floor.
Oh.
And I had given him a remote phone to take with him, but he didn't take the phone.
Didn't take the phone. Oh no. Well, if he got the oil in the burn, I'm sure he was warm down there at least, right? With
to a certain extent.
To a certain extent, yeah.
He ended up in a nursing home after that because it was so bad. And he got discovered by his brother-in-law, who used to check on him every morning.
Oh goodness.
Thank God he had a key to get in.
Thank God, yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, and I told him, you got the money in the bank. It won't. Don't worry about leaving it to someone. Enjoy it yourself. Put a new. He wouldn't do it.
Yeah, every system we see today, it's automatic.
But a lot of the older, that generation, were very conservative, and they weren't going to spend money unless they truly, truly had to.
Yeah. There's a lot of great programs out there for upgrading those systems now.
And with a lot of rebates and more interest-free loans and everything else.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. We talk about that all the time with our customers. There's the mass save programs are wonderful for energy efficiency. Again, as you were saying, no interest loans for heating systems, for
Yeah.
windows, insulation. They offer at a reduced cost. It's a great program, and every
I-
house we go into.
I just installed, well, I did it over a year ago now, the minis. I put 2 of them in.
Sure,
You're familiar with them?
the mini split systems, absolutely, yeah,
Oh my God, I love it.
yeah.
It keeps my house warm, and it hasn't raised my my electric bill that much.
Yeah,
We have them here.
sure. We're seeing a lot with solar panels coming into more and more people's homes.
I have them.
People have the solar panels, absolutely. I do as well. And with that and those mini split systems, the electricity bill is not as high as it would have
Yeah.
been or as it used to be.
I actually had solar hot water put in under when Jimmy Carter was president.
Oh wow.
So, and I still got the system, and it still works.
Wow.
And
Solar powered, huh?
originally it was water that went up to the panels,
Right.
and then you had a sensor that if it reached a certain temperature, it dropped the water down, so it wouldn't
Okay.
freeze.
Yep.
Well, it failed.
Mm.
But the insurance company paid to put new panels and paid to go to a chemical system,
Okay.
so it doesn't freeze.
Yep.
The chemical will be up, and then it comes down, and it goes through a pipe system where it actually heats the water in the pipes.
Ah.
Then it goes into the water tank,
Wow.
the solar tank.
So you still store the water and
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's next to my water heater, so when it goes into the water heater, it's already heated up.
Right.
So it's not, instead of going in at 40 degrees, which I have a well,
Yeah.
and that's what it'd be going in at, it's going in, in the summertime, it'll be up to 100, over 100 degrees, but even in the winter, it'll be as much as 60 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not heating as much, and then I have a hybrid water heater.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The
Those
hybrid.
are fairly new too. There's so much energy efficient stuff out there. I look for it all the time.
Yeah.
And I get a rebate on that.
Absolutely. No, we're seeing a lot more, hybrid hot water tanks like you have. Even upgrades in insulating homes.
Yeah.
We're seeing people use spray foam insulation. For decades it was fiberglass. You just put fiberglass insulation,
Yes.
pink stuff. Most of it was pink or yellow sometimes. But now we're changing, and starting to see that more, and that does a better job sealing up, especially in basements we're seeing.
Well, that really tight because it fills every gap.
Yeah, fills every gap, and a more expensive, it's still more expensive than fiberglass, but, hopefully is a better solution, certainly in basements. Mice tend to find their way into the fiberglass
Yes.
and love living in it, so spray foam not so much. And
Now, they spray it right between the rafters and just cover all the floor joists.
yeah, most of the homes that we see today with it, they just do it at the perimeter of the house.
Oh.
It's not through the floors or anything. And even we recommend to people where there are basements with no insulation, if you can just insulate 6 to 12 inches back from the perimeter, you don't have to insulate the entire floor.
Oh, because with the fiberglass, they would do the entire floor.
Yeah, a lot of homes they would do the fiberglass the whole way, but unless you're finishing that space in the basement, there's not really a need to do that. If you just get to the perimeter, like I said, that's 6 to 12 inches, that's usually enough. And when they do the spray foam, that's usually as far as they'll go. It's just at the sills around the house.
Now, you also have those, the blue, what is probably about 2 inches thick foam panels,
Yep, rigid foam, yep.
rigid foam. That generally goes on the outside.
Yeah, we're starting to see it. Once in a while you'll see it, new construction. They're putting kind of foam panels on the outside,
Right.
before they're doing the siding work, kind of as a different layer.
Well, I'm talking around the basement.
But around the basement, yeah, you see them in the foundations as well. Yeah, we're starting to see that. Most of the time when we see the foam board, it's used in attic spaces to kind of cover up attic access panels or attic drop
Well, I can
downs
tell you,
too.
here, we have a back room here with a furnace. that the furnace is used to heat the Legion side.
Sure.
And it's an addition, and it was a cinder block building. And you know that cement has an R factor of 0.
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, you might as well not have any wall at all.
Yeah.
So what I told, we had as a Legion, we did, was my idea, we bought those blue foam panels, the interlock, and we did the whole wall.
Yeah.
All the outer wall. And it's made a difference on how often that furnace starts.
Yeah. It's the only solution in some cases where you have a surface like that. It's not like wood frame construction where you can throw fiberglass or
Right.
blow in insulation in between the walls.
Yeah, it wasn't that expensive to do it.
No.
And it really sealed it up.
No. Wherever we see a lack of insulation, I mean, you're paying to heat the town.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And in the summertime, you're paying to cool it.
You're paying to cool your house. You're paying a lot more to cool your house. You're
Yeah.
paying a lot more to heat it. You know, it's a year-round thing. Insulation works 365 days a year.
Yeah.
So
That's why I like the minis, too. You can cool your house or heat your house, depending on what time of year you are in.
yeah, it's a no-maintenance system. I mean, there's really
Yeah.
not a lot to it. You know, I
Well, you
think
do have to clean them.
you have to clean them, but you know, for anyone really, you know,
Which
you don't.
takes about 5-10 minutes.
Yeah,
Drop the panel, you take out that filter and wash it off. But now they recommend that you spray it inside with something like Lysol.
oh, okay.
They spray the fins, so that prevents mold from building in there, as well as you're recirculating air, so if you got a COVID virus in the house, it'll kill it.
Yeah, wow, that's new. That's something I wasn't aware of.
I got
the
that
Lysol
from
part
the
of it.
installer. I didn't mention Lysol, but he said a spray, a disinfecting spray.
So, no, those systems are great. You know, your standard oil and gas systems for heating. You know, there's maintenance that you have to keep up on, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, you know, a lot of the homes we go into, people lapse on that, and they don't really put in that effort to get it serviced every year or every other year in the case of gas ones. So, anything you can do to make life a little easier on yourself.
Well,
Have a
gas is
system
the
that does
bargain
both.
right now, but
Yeah.
that could change. If you notice, the gasoline prices are popping up.
Yeah, they're creeping up a little
Yeah,
bit,
and-
and natural gas and propane too.
Yeah,
You know, just a
so
little bit. So
we may have reached a point where our cheap fuels are going away.
yeah, no, and that's why it's good to see people with solar, and good to see people looking at alternative
I've had
forms.
solar for, electric solar now for a number of years, and like I say, in the summertime, yeah, it's great. Now, well, you're not making out as well.
No, not so much, but at
You
least
get a
they're
phone call.
sure thing.
Go ahead, caller, you're on.
Hi, how we doing, guys?
Okay.
How are you tonight?
Good. Enjoying the show. I have a quick question. It'll obviously come to you, Brian. I know a house is a house is a house, but do you have a I don't want to say it, high ball, low ball number for a home inspection?
Sure. You know, we generally do our pricing based on the size of the house. Obviously, you know, 1,000-foot ranch is different from a 4,000 square foot mansion or mini mansion.
Right.
You know, generally, you know, in our area in Central Mass and Metro West, for a single-family home, you're looking at, you know, between $400 and $500 for an inspection, and then, you know, for those services, those lab services with water testing, if you have a well, or radon testing, you know, is usually a little bit more cost on top of that, you know, in the, you know, $75 to $150 range, something
I
like
get
that.
you. In other words, there could be a few add-ons and...
Yeah, we never try to upsell anything. You know, if there is a well, we advise you do quantity and quality testing, just so you know before you actually move forward with it.
Yeah.
And radon testing, again, most people are familiar with radon, and, you know, we offer it, and we don't even have to ask people. People, you know, are asking us for that service. So that's around about what it is. Yeah.
Okay. I just, like I said, I'm enjoying the program, and I was just curious what the price range would be. And like I said, a house is a house is a house, so it's not it's not automatically flat. But
No.
in other words, you kind of start from there and you see what happens.
We start from there, and obviously, like I said earlier, we do multifamily homes, and that's a different kind of beast in itself. If you're
A whole new ball game.
Yeah, if you're looking at an investment property, that's it would probably be a little higher than that. But again, it depends on
But
the
here
house.
again, your average cost now in Northbridge, I think, is $325.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
$225,000. You're talking spending over $250,000. Isn't it worth spending $500 or $600 to get inspected?
I think most people look at it that way. Absolutely.
To know ahead of time that you're not buying a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to say, and doesn't the bank require for the buyer require a home inspection?
No, there's no requirement. If you're doing conventional financing with a bank or a mortgage company, no one's requiring a home inspection. They are going to do their own separate appraisal of the property. And we were talking about FHA and VA, they're going to do their own
Yes.
appraisal
That's
and
right.
inspection
The bank will
too.
But
send
they
people
sometimes
into,
do require, VA and FHA may require it if they're giving you a large loan with very little down. In those cases, they may require certain inspections because they got no buffer, whereas the bank, you're putting 5 to 10% down, they got a buffer if something's wrong,
Right.
and you renege on the mortgage.
Yeah. But as far as you going to buy a home, I would say 95 to 97% of most home sales, there is a home inspection involved by someone like myself. It's at this point, if you're working with a realtor, pretty much everyone's going to advise you to get one. The only ones that really don't is if it is kind of a rehab property, something that someone, a contractor or a house flipper is going to be doing substantial work for, they may waive their right to a home inspection.
Yeah, well, they're looking at getting the right price,
Yeah.
knowing what they're gonna do to it.
What we have heard, just to extend the point a little bit, is that we were talking about how these have turned into bidding wars. Some of these
Yeah.
offers on home sales now, some buyers are going in and to kind of sweeten their offer are saying, "Oh, I'll waive the home inspection," and I would advise against that. I know people get their hearts set on a property or on a house and think that's they've gone through it or they went through it with their uncle or someone who knows construction. They said it was fine. They think they can do that. If you're making that kind of investment on a house and you're going above the asking price too, it's really in your best interest
You know
not
what
to.
to look for. They don't. The average person doesn't know what to look for.
Yeah, and it's not something you want to play with if you're
Right.
making that kind of investment that'll really determine your financial future for the decades to come.
Okay, we answer all your questions, Avi?
Yes, sir. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, it's like I say, you're making a major investment.
Yeah.
In fact, in some cases, $500,000, and some almost $1 million, depending on the house.
Yeah.
There's homes in this town that are going close to $1 million.
Yeah, we've seen them. Not just in this town. We did a property on Webster Lake this summer, over $1 million.
There you go.
And a beautiful house, well built, but not without its issues. And that's why some people say I said about the rehab situation where they'll waive a home inspection. People are doing new construction or buying a new construction. They'll say, "Oh, I don't need a home inspection. It's new." We find things in new construction all the time when we do those inspections.
Yeah, and like I say, even on new construction, because most contractors are pretty good, but they're looking to make money, and they might take some shortcuts or cut some corners here or there.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that you don't have that happen.
Yeah. People think, penny wise and pound foolish, I think was
Yeah.
the old saying. And, even on a new construction, where you're paying $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for a house, what's an extra $500 in the
Exactly.
scheme of things,
On a new construction, what do you find most of the time is a problem? Is it the fixtures or?
So generally, we're doing this inspection after every inspector in the town or city has signed off on
Right.
it, right? So you've got your electrical, plumbing, gas, if there's gas involved, and your final from your building inspector. All of that has to be signed off. It really should be signed off before we do the inspection. So we really don't see a lot of issues with plumbing or electrical. It just happens to be, something that, got forgotten. I was doing a house in Worcester this summer, and again, final inspection's been done from the building inspector. Everything's been signed off, and I go up into the attic and I look around the attic. There's no insulation in the attic.
Oh,
There's not one strand of fiberglass, not one scrap of blown in loose fill insulation. There's nothing. And I said, how did this ever get signed off on?
the heat's going to be going right out that roof.
The heat, that's one of those things that, you think that's, you trust the inspectors, you trust the licensing people in the town to do a thorough inspection, and you wonder what happened on that one where that was kind of let go. So again, we're not talking about building codes. We're not, in depth and experts on those things. But, most of the time we see, it's something kind of obvious like that, or it's just, something's not wired right. Something.
Yeah, a lot of people may not realize it, but in Massachusetts, we have special codes now for making the house efficient for heating and cooling.
Yeah. And so if those aren't being met,
Yeah.
That's
So
an easy
they're
one.
required now to
Yeah.
have certain things done so that they're more energy efficient.
So again, we don't see a lot on new construction, but sometimes there are those,
Yeah.
those odd things. That big sort of one that you wonder how
Yeah,
someone
that's pretty huge.
you wonder how someone missed that.
Yeah. Well, the building inspector probably didn't feel like going in the attic.
It's possible, we don't follow along on building inspections. We don't know what those guys and gals are doing. So we just comment on what we can see that day that we're in there. And on new construction, you don't get that inspection from us done till everyone's work has been signed off.
The people buying that property must have been surprised to find that out.
A little bit surprised, yeah. I think they ended up going back to the builder
Yeah.
and asking about it. And it was a nice house. It was a beautiful house otherwise. But another thing I remember in that house, three-way switches. So you enter into a house, turn on a light. In the staircase, there's another light at the top of the stairs. The three-way switches didn't work, and that's something that, again, I feel for the builders, because you got a lot of guys and gals that you're trying to get in, and you're trying to coordinate all these different tradespeople to do this work and do it right. You're trusting them to do it right, but you're not looking over their shoulder and babying them all the way. So, again, for that peace of mind, we're sort of that last resort before someone goes and buys
Right, the
it.
builder probably, he could have got a statement from the insulating company saying it was done, but
But they never made it into that
Never
one,
made it,
right?
yeah.
They're building a whole development of these
Yeah.
houses, and they're trying to get them up as quick as they can and as
Right.
efficiently and cost effective as they can. Sometimes stuff gets missed.
yeah.
We're all human.
And that's what I say. When you're making the largest investment in your life, it's going to kill you to spend $500, $600 to make sure that you're not getting shortcutted here.
Yeah, we have no skin in the game. We're there working for our
Yeah.
clients, and we don't, if there's been a situation, like I said, my father's been doing this for almost 20 years, where he's gone back to a house that he did an inspection for 10, 15 years. We'll disclose that. we'll disclose anything we have to, by our ethical standards. If
We're getting late, but let me
Yeah, sure.
give your contact information out.
Sure.
If anybody's listening.
Sure. So we're Dovetail Home Inspection. You can find us on Google, on Facebook. We have a website as well. Our phone number is 774-232-2262. You can always email us, Dovetail Home Inspection, all one word, @gmail.com. Lots of ways to get in touch with us. If you're in the market for a new home or you're thinking about selling your home, you want us to come in and have a look, we'd love to work for you. We'd love to earn your business.
And Brian's right here in Northbridge, so he's not hard to get a hold of.
Not far. If it was a nicer night, I would have walked.
Yeah.
I would have walked up here. I'm not too far away. My wife and I love it here. Our son, he's 18 months old now.
Oh, he's not in the school system yet.
Not in the school system yet, but we found it's going to be a great place to raise a family, and
We've
we're
got a
very
good
excited.
school system. It's just like every other system in the country. Yeah, they're on a hybrid.
Yeah, it's remote now. Hopefully, by the time he's
By the
school
time he goes
age.
start school, things will be back to normal.
And I think he'll be going to that elementary school over
He will
the
be.
new school.
They're scheduled to
Balmer
be
school, yeah.
occupied in September.
Yeah, so he'll be in that new school, and that'll be great. And
Yeah.
we're excited about living here, and excited about hopefully growing a business here as well.
I've got a couple of seconds here.
Sure.
You don't do anything like a clerk of the works job, like with that school. You don't do anything like that.
No, we don't do anything like that. No, but
Strictly home inspection.
strictly home inspections. Just focus on one thing and do it well. That's what we hope to do. We are trying to modernize. For years, reports were on paper and handwritten. We now do them
Digitally.
electronically on an iPad. So we take pictures throughout the inspection, and we're putting together a report that you can have at the end of the inspection that we go through with you, and we send you a copy in PDF format. Has all the pictures, all of our notes, all of our information, and recommendations and guidelines for homeowners.
You can do a much larger report by doing it digitally.
We do it, yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the reports, if there's a lot going on in the house, it turns out to be 70, 80 pages. And there's no fluff in there. We're not grandstanding. We're not putting unnecessary information in there. That's just how they end up. But if it's digital, it's a little easier to work with than 70, 80 pages of paper.
So thank you for coming in, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
I want to make sure we don't get shut off by the computer.
No.
Okay, but we haven't anybody lined up for next week, but we're working on it. But we'll see you Wednesday on 3 on 11.